Continuing our RNC coverage and conversation from the Pfister Hotel in Annex Wealth Management's office, and joining me now is Mayor Johnson, the Mayor of Milwaukee. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. You know, you and I have a lot in common, and I think maybe we can start there. We both grew up in the city of Milwaukee. I grew up in the 53208, not the 53206, but having grown up there, I've really been involved with the city for a long time in many of the committees. But I am so proud that you are the mayor of the city. You are making great advances, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as a matter of fact, I currently live in 53208, so there's another connection.
Oh, you are. That's great. Yeah. So I grew up off of Lloyd Street,
Okay.
and had been there basically my whole life, and been involved in a lot of committees. But family been involved with the Milwaukee Police Department for 50, 60 years continuously. But there's a lot of great things that are happening, and and one of them, of course, is this RNC convention here, and you had a big part of that being on the host committee, and so you worked with not only Ted Kellner and Reince Priebus, but you were part of that committee.
Yeah, it was really a strong and bipartisan push in order to get the convention here. Everybody was just stellar, from those folks that you mentioned, whether it's Ted Kellner and Reince Priebus to Peggy Williams-Smith over at Visit Milwaukee.
And by the way, she just walked by the window just a second ago.
I just saw her as I was coming in here. It's my second time seeing her today.
All right.
She's working hard this week. But her and the county executive, David Crowley, and just so many other people that worked so diligently, and again, in a bipartisan manner, in order to make the way for this convention to come here, which I think is not political. It's about business. It's about putting Milwaukee further along on the map, letting folks across the country and across the world know that this city is ready to host large-scale conventions. So whether it's business, political, and I say political because I would still like the DNC to consider coming here and giving us a full-blown convention, sports or entertainment or trade shows, I want all those things and all those places to choose Milwaukee.
And you think about being political or partisan versus the economic, and that always exists, and those intersections are always happening, all the way up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is one of the reasons these are here. But you have, since the day that you have taken that oath, been reaching over the aisle and trying to do that. And that's really, I think, what the communities want, not only here but across the country, is to work together. And you've been doing that. You talk about the economic impact for the city. Obviously the Bucks won the championship just a few years ago, and that, a lot of people in the world now know where Milwaukee is, but for sure now.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I've had the opportunity over the course of this convention to chat with people from all over the country, law enforcement officers, delegates, journalists from places all across the United States. They are having a phenomenal time here. They're really enjoying Milwaukee. Many of them, it's their first time even being to Wisconsin. This is their first impression of Wisconsin right here in Milwaukee, and it's been great. But it's not even just people in the country. I've had the opportunity over the course of the last day to talk to foreign press from around the world, from Brazil to the Netherlands, from China to the UK, who are here in Milwaukee and having an impression of this city. So there are images and experiences happening in Milwaukee that are being beamed into living rooms and into C-suites all across the country and all across the world, and Milwaukee is really impressing.
And not only that, you did an interview, I believe, yesterday with the Wall Street Journal, and made a lot of news with that, and the fact that you said you can bifurcate the difference between politics and economics, and you're representing the economic part of it, and your constituents should understand that part.
Yeah, I mean, I think in most cases you can do that. Like, you can separate the two. I mean, do I agree with, the Republican Party platform? Absolutely not. Do I agree with Mr. Trump? Absolutely not. I mean, in the lead up to this convention, he and I, traded a couple barbs
right
before the convention here. That's fine. That's political. But you can't deny this week-long commercial that the city of Milwaukee is getting to be showcased, be broadcast into, again, C-suites and living rooms all across the country and around the world, making people more curious about Milwaukee. And if people get more curious about Milwaukee, they come here, they spend time here, they spend money here. That helps our economy, that helps grow our economy, it helps attract other large-scale events here to the city, which I believe creates a virtuous economic cycle, a virtuous economic loop for people who live here, who work here, and own businesses in Milwaukee.
And that is going to expand not just in this beautiful hotel that we are in, but of course to communities, especially to the north, to the south, and to the west of here. And that's what's really important. And as I said, living here my whole life, I am invested in their success as well. We want that to happen. And all of those things that you're doing are doing this.
Well, I mean, as I've said a number of times, right, when Milwaukee does well, then the entire state of Wisconsin does well. So let Milwaukee grow, let Milwaukee be, and the state of Wisconsin will reap the benefits.
And we talk about platforms, and of course, do you agree or do you not agree? And we could talk about policy, but the one thing was, you said trading barbs, right? The fact that he said or apparently said horrible city, was it taken out of context? Your comment was right back at you. It actually made me chuckle because it was a good line, and it may have been taken out of context, but you and I know for certain that this is not a horrible city. This is a great city. It's an unbelievable city, and there's a lot of great things happening. And one of the things that are happening is we talk about crime in the city, and we're starting to see some improvement there.
Oh, absolutely. We really are, and I agree. Like, as I've been able to go out and talk to folks, like, people are having a great time in a horrible city.
Yeah.
But when you talk about crime in Milwaukee, over the course of the last 2 years with our approach, and I've said this from the beginning since I came into this office. I believed it before I came into office. I really believe it now, is that when anybody causes death or harm or destruction in this city, that there's got to be a price to pay, right? And so our approach is on accountability, law enforcement accountability, seeing through when people do harm to our community, that there is justice on the other side, but then also prevention at the same time. Accountability and prevention. On the preventative side, I mean, I can talk at length about
Sure.
the work that we do.
And
not
so
just
can that security dog who's barking through the window right now.
I
But
know,
yeah,
I heard him. Scooby over there. But our work with our Camp Rise program, engaging kids as young as 10 years old, Milwaukee may be the only big city in the country that's doing workforce development with kids as young as 10 years old under a program that we started. Obviously, our longstanding Earn and Learn Summer Youth Jobs program that we have going on. Just last week, Friday, myself, in conjunction with the Milwaukee Brewers Community Foundation and the Brewers organization itself, we brought 2,000 kids who have many of them never even been inside the ballpark, never been to American Family Field, to what was their first Major League Baseball game. Like, those sort of experiences help to provide wonderful opportunities for kids to experience things that are new, experience things that are different, and then they don't get into trouble in the first place.
So let's talk about two things there. One, I do want to come back to education, but you brought up the Brewers. And of course, I had spent some time as a representative of the stadium board, and I was telling one of your staff members that before that we had put this spreadsheet together when I was on the board that said, if revenue goes down, if sales tax revenue goes down and interest rates go up, it could have an adverse effect and extend that tax, that stadium tax. That did come to an end. The Brewers came back to the city and to others and to the state and said, we need some help. You reached over the aisle and tried to get that deal done.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a city that is growing and a city that's attractive, then you have to have big city amenities, and we certainly have those. I think it sends the completely wrong message if you start to lose those things. And so we didn't want to lose the Brewers. To me, it was much more than just the baseball players, the folks
Right.
who take the field every day and play the game. It was about the hundreds of jobs, the hundreds of union jobs that are at American Family Field. I mean, these are my constituents
Right.
who have access to good paying jobs. I don't want to lose those jobs. And so we're able to do that, make all those things match up, and secure baseball being played in Milwaukee and Wisconsin for the next generation. And I think that's good for everybody.
And you went to the state and you reached over to Robin Vos, and you did that deal, and that was fantastic. And that is what you've been doing, and I think that is what people want. I mean, there's certainly far right and far left, but most people are in the middle. I often talk about, in the securities world, there's black and there's white when it comes to compliance law, but most of it is gray. And I think most people are in the middle. And so, thank you for doing that. And let's come back to one of the things that I think you were starting to allude to was education and the kids in this program. I grew up playing basketball at Washington Park. You know exactly where that is, and and everything that was there. But we had a crime incident, I guess you could say, not that that long ago, which kind of broke my heart. But a part of that is there was a lot of kids there, and let's talk about education and keeping these kids engaged.
Oh, sure. And yes, I do know Washington Park. I lived across the street for some time when I was a kid, and
Right.
that's where I first learned to swim. And I was there a couple of weeks ago. Summerfest is so generous, and they give me some tickets that I'm able to disperse
Right.
to folks in the community. So I know that, much like you, there's still like a lot of kids that go there and play
Right.
basketball. So I went there and gave some free stuff.
But you were swimming in the pool, I hope, and not the lagoon, because
I was swimming in the pool back in the day. So I went there and gave some Summerfest tickets out to folks. But I mean, to your question, I mean, education certainly is important. And for me, what I've been focusing on since I've been here, outside of the more recent incidents that have happened around the school district, I've been working to make sure we take care of things around the schools, right? And that's what my responsibility had been and still is as mayor, is to work to make sure that families have access to good paying family supporting jobs.
Right.
I was just in the barber shop speaking with some folks, and that's what they were talking about. Like that sort of stability that you got when folks had access to good paying work in manufacturing, that is what stabilized neighborhoods and created greater public safety. That's a thing that's outside the school. When it comes to making sure you've got the correct amount of law enforcement personnel and firefighters and programs and things like that for kids, like that is how you make sure those things on the outside are in the best shape that they possibly can be, so that when kids do go into the classroom, then they're well prepared for success.
And we talk about what's happening, particularly with Milwaukee Public Schools and the funding issues that are there. You had a hand in an attempt to try to fix that.
Sure. I mean, all of this news was new to everybody, and given what it was, I mean, these are kids in Milwaukee. I mean, all these kids, regardless of the school type that they go to, whether it's Milwaukee public schools like I went to, was starting kindergarten and graduated in 12th grade from Bayview High School and was well prepared and went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and became the first person in my family to graduate. Whether it's public schools, whether it's private schools, whether it's charter schools, all these children, all these kids are Milwaukee kids. So they're all my kids, and I have a responsibility to each and every single one of them. So when the news broke about what was going on with some of the financial problems around Milwaukee Public Schools, I immediately contacted the city comptroller, who is an independently elected official, and tried to work to find out what he might be able to do, what his office might be able to do to help out, to be assistive, to provide some supports. And I'm glad that the school district took him up on his offer to help.
Yeah, for sure. And the last thing I want to do is, the city has had some funding issues, and and I've talked a lot on my show about the sources of inflation, and one of them was money that was distributed. But part of that money that was distributed, that 1.9 trillion of American Rescue Plan, came to this city and certainly helped shore up the financials of the city of Milwaukee.
Oh, absolutely. And, I am very grateful, and I know not just me, but mayors across the United States, from communities large and small, are grateful for President Joe Biden and the investment that he made in cities, directly in cities across the country. As it relates specifically to Milwaukee, if we didn't have that investment, if President Joe Biden did not make that investment, Milwaukee would have been insolvent. We would have not had the runway that we needed to go to Madison to strike a bipartisan deal with Speaker Voss and Leader Lemahue, Democrats in the legislature, and Governor Tony Evers, to get the additional revenues that we now are able to employ to have some stabilization in our city budget. So ARPA was key. If it were not for that, we would have been in a position where half of the police, just think about this, half of the police officers in Milwaukee as of January 1 this year would have been laid off.
Yep.
A quarter of the firefighters gone. Hundreds of other city employees would have no longer been on the job. It's only because of President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, some of that spending that you're talking about, that helped us to not encounter that doomsday scenario.
And the second part is the infrastructure bill, and you are certainly seeing it in your city as well. And so, I'm trying to be bipartisan as well, not that I represent one side or the other, but the infrastructure bill certainly helped the city of Milwaukee as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the bipartisan infrastructure law, which was another thing that President Joe Biden has championed, it's paying dividends here in Milwaukee. I mean, there are so many projects that are happening on the ground right now in the city that are directly related related to that law, whether it's improving bridges, whether it's making streets safer for traffic flow, whether it's addressing issues around reckless driving, whether it's helping us to build out a protected bikeway network throughout the city, whether it's helping to make sure that the streets are safer for kids that are trying to get to school or get to parks. All these things have come from President Joe Biden's administration and direction. And the city, I think, and not just me as mayor or as a citizen, but I think the city is grateful for those investments.
And so there's policies that both sides are going to argue very strongly for, and what policy is better for which community. But I think we all are working towards the same direction. I appreciate that, and of course, your political aspirations, in my opinion, should be on the city of Milwaukee. Even though this is your job right now, and you are a great mayor for the city of Milwaukee, and I hope that you get everything done that you want. But I would expect that you would be on the short list for the governor's list as well, if that's something that you aspire to.
I've been asked that question a lot since I've been mayor, if I'm going to run for governor at some point. I've said this, I was just reelected overwhelmingly, over 80% of the vote to continue serving as mayor of the city, and it's something that I am honored to do, to serve the city that I was born in, the city that I love. And I've been a supporter of Governor Tony Evers. I supported him in 2018. I support him in 2022. If he runs again in 2026, I'd be supporting him in 2026. He can certainly count on my support for that too. At some day in the future, would I like to run for governor? The answer is yes, I would. But right now, my focus is on the city of Milwaukee.
And a great success story, not only for your family, but for the city of Milwaukee. So thank you for coming in and joining us today from the RNC coverage and the conversation that we're having from the Annex Wealth Management Office in the Pfister Hotel. Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Thank you.